Welcome to Rugby Biomechanics. This video describes the proper scrum technique for the prop position. In rugby, the scrum puts the ball back into play. There are two props in the scrum, one on each side of the front row. The prop is at the front of the scrum and will engage directly with the front row of the opposition. Biomechanically, the prop in a scrum functions as a third-class lever. The point of force application is between the fulcrum and the resistance. The fulcrum is located at the feet, while the resistance is applied to the shoulders. The hips and the knees function as the point of force application. The pre-engage is a crouch position into a squat with a forward body position. The head and neck should be neutral with slight extension via concentric contraction of the cervical paraspinals. The shoulders should be in scapular retraction concentrically by the rhomboids, middle and lower trapezius, and then held there isometrically throughout the entire skill. A neutral spine should be maintained with an isometric contraction of the erector spinae muscles and abdominal muscles. The hips are in flexion with an eccentric contraction of the gluteals and the hip extensor muscles. The knees should also remain in flexion with an eccentric contraction of the quadriceps muscle group. The ankles are in dorsiflexion with an eccentric contraction of the gastrocnemius and soleus complex with the weight forward on the balls of the feet. The engage is a swift production of force to come into contact with the opposition. The force should be forward and slightly down to include moving the hips and knees into extension and the ankles into plantar flexion. The shoulders should remain in scapular retraction to keep the chest open and the shoulders parallel to the opposition. This provides a large base of contact against the resistance force as well as keeping the trunk from falling to the ground. The trunk and spine should remain neutral to maintain the flat back position that's so important to provide the stable platform. The hips remain in flexion, but are concentrically moving into extension via the gluteals and the hip extensors. The knees also remain in flexion, but are concentrically contracting into extension against the force of the opposition. The ankles are still in dorsiflexion, but are concentrically pushing into plantar flexion via the gastrocnemius and soleus complex. The weight should be forward onto the balls of the feet, with the feet back far enough to maintain a stable position. The post-engage is a strong hold with continued force pressing forward. All of the body segments stay in relatively the same position. The hips and knees continue to make small corrections as they maintain force production. Again, the hips and knees should stay between 80 and 120 degrees of flexion for optimal pushing power. The shins should be parallel to the ground, while the ankles remain in dorsiflexion, and the weight continues to stay on the balls of the feet. Here's a quick look at the powerful engage. The post-engage is a stability war with teams fighting against each other to maintain the most stable platform. There are many techniques you can use in order to try to defeat the opposing scrum. Now that we've broken it down, let's bring it all back together. This is a video of a scrum forming. The players bind onto each other to create one solid platform. Once they are all bound in, the scrum engages. There are two common types of improper techniques in the scrum. The first is the hinge up. In the case of the yellow team here, if the core is not strong enough to handle the load, the trunk and spine lose integrity due to weak core muscles. The opposing force then causes the scrum to hinge up, with the players popping up out of the scrum. On the other hand, a hinge down happens when the knees are too far into extension, but the rest of the body is in a good position. This means the feet will be too far back. For the green team, if the fulcrum at the feet is too far from the point of force application at the hips, then the heavy resistance at the shoulders will become much harder to move. Therefore, the body will fall forward and break at the point of resistance. These improper techniques can be improved upon by the proper strengthening and power programs. The overhead squat is a great strengthening exercise. The front squat is also a great alternative, and the plank is always a good idea to help maintain core stability. The best way to improve power is Olympic lifting by using the three main Olympic lifts: the clean and jerk, the snatch, and the power clean. This is Scrum Technique for the prop in a nutshell. Thank you for watching. All of these videos are of elite athletes trained in their sport and skill. Please do not try any of these at home without the proper supervision from a trained professional.